Okay, masking. Masking is always a very controversial topic. There are people who just vehemently don't ever want to wear a mask. There are persons who have bona fide medical exemptions, don't want to wear a mask. And then there are those who only want to see people ever always wearing masks, and perhaps something in between. So recently, a couple in Ontario fought and had to take their condo board or condo corporation to court over their right not to wear a mask. They're an elderly couple, and the judge sided in their favor, saying that they do not have to wear a mask in certain common areas that they need to access. Hannah, what did you think about this decision?
I definitely was very happy to see this decision because even though your private businesses like this condo, they don't have to abide by the charter like the government, they have to abide by the Ontario Human Rights Code. And in there, it's clearly detailed that you cannot discriminate against people for various things, including disabilities. And this couple clearly laid out in the article that they have medical reasons why they cannot wear masks. So that's also where they live. It's like their home. And yes, it's sad they had to go through such a hassle in order to be able to not wear masks in the common areas. But yeah, I'm definitely very happy to see this ruling.
Yeah, because if you take a step back, I mean, here you have a couple who obviously, like, they didn't move in during COVID. They were there before COVID. And I don't think anybody here would have predicted that, in 2020, halfway through the year, we're all going to have to start wearing masks. So, with their medical concerns, they're seniors, they have to be able to live where they live. And, they're equally a member in the condo corp as other persons who have concerns. I did find it interesting that their medical exemption did not permit them to also wear a face shield, because that might have been maybe a good halfway mark. But at the end of the day, you're right. The Ontario Human Rights Code does apply to that place. And I'm glad that there has been an adjudication on this, because I haven't seen very many coming down on the masking. And there are some people with bona fide medical health conditions, and mental for that matter, who can't mask. And it is sad that they had to go to court. David, am I wrong with my thoughts on this? Do you want to challenge me on this?
For me, this feels a little bit more like an act of political protest than one of the more genuine and appropriate medical exemptions. I know that you've spoken to an example of a woman entering a store previously, and I don't believe that she was able to have the proper functioning of her arms.
Right.
So obviously she was exempt from the restriction. I think any reasonable person would look at that and say that's appropriate. In this case, if we evaluate the words of the one individual in question, his claim was that he gets lightheaded when wearing anything that covers his nose, which is fine, and there may be a legitimate medical reason for that. But I don't think that a face shield falls into that category. And that's where I think that this is really a political stance rather than a medical one. And it's a shame, because there are very serious and very legitimate examples of those who cannot wear masks. And this really blurs the debate when we have people engage in this type of behavior. And I think it really demeans those who have those legitimate reasons for not being able to wear a mask. And so I'm not so certain that this was one of those appropriate adjudications, especially because at the end of the day, the condo board owns those common spaces.
Right.
And so there is some level of private property and the provisions there that need to be accounted for.
Okay, but speaking of the face shield, because you brought up a very good point, and I sort of teased it when I was, giving my perspective there. There are many retailers or many places in this country, in medical health facilities, places which will definitely say, no, you can't wear a face shield alone. That's not good enough. That does nothing. So why even go down the face shield route if it's a moot point to begin with? Like, who cares? If it does nothing, then why should they even bother wearing it? It's really the mask that's the thrust of it, no? Is it just virtue signaling if they do wear the face shield?
Well, not necessarily, because it depends on what you're protecting against. If you're protecting against being in a closed setting with damp air, then no, a face shield is not really the appropriate level of protection. But if we're talking about shorter instances and exposures to other people, then a face shield is deemed to be appropriate. And it certainly sounds like this individual going through an elevator or down to check the mail or to the parking garage, those would probably fall in the latter example. And so I think there probably could have been something resolved where a face shield was an appropriate middle ground for this. And I think it's just unfortunate that it didn't get there. It went to a human rights tribunal case, which with my own human rights academic background, I can pretty solidly say that they don't have the best track record of getting much right when it comes to evaluating these claims.